Greetings. In this video, I will tell the legend of how the suicide of one virtuous woman, Lucretia, led to an uprising and the fall of the monarchy in ancient Rome. The last Roman king was Tarquin, called the Proud, who ruled from 534 to 509 BC. He came to power illegally, overthrowing his predecessor, Servius Tullius. Legend has it that he sent assassins to kill Servius Tullius, and the body of the deposed king lay in the streets of Rome. It is said that when the daughter of Servius Tullius, who was also the wife of Tarquin, was on her way to her husband, hurrying to congratulate him on becoming king, the charioteer turned into a narrow street where the former king's body was lying. Tullia, angered by the delay, ordered the corpse of her father to be run over. Blood spurted from the body, staining the wife of Tarquin. Thus, having left the house as a king's daughter, she returned as a queen, covered in her father's blood. The street where the episode with the chariot occurred was thereafter called the Accursed. Having seized royal power through crime, Tarquin the Proud surrounded himself with an entire detachment of bodyguards, understanding that he himself had set the example of how the throne could be taken. Tarquin rightly assumed that he could hardly count on the respect of his fellow citizens, and therefore decided to keep his subjects in obedience through fear. Against the laws, Tarquin passed judgments and sentenced citizens to executions and exile, deprived people of their lives, property, and homeland, anyone who displeased him or aroused his suspicion. It was said that Tarquin treated everyone without exception arrogantly, showing no regard for the merits or dignity of his fellow citizens. Naturally, protest was brewing among the people, which turned into a full-scale uprising after yet another crime, though this time not by Tarquin himself, but by his son. Tarquin had 3 sons. The eldest, Sextus, was entrusted by his father to command the Roman army during the siege of the city of Ardea, a small town located near Rome, on the shore of the Tyrrhenian Sea. The customs were rather lax, and Sextus, along with his friends, frequently organized feasts. At one of these feasts, they invited Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, a cousin of Tarquin the Proud. During the party, the young men began boasting about their wives. When the argument became heated, Collatinus remarked that there was no point in continuing a completely useless dispute, and proposed, "Let us mount our horses and see with our own eyes the nature of our wives. What the eye of an unexpected husband beholds should be the most convincing proof for each of us." They were already thoroughly drunk and unanimously supported the proposal. Spurring their horses, they galloped to Rome. It turned out that all the wives of the disputants were either at a feast with the king's daughters-in-law or amusing themselves with idle chatter among friends. Only Collatinus's wife, late in the evening, was sitting with her maidservants working on her spinning. She warmly welcomed the unexpected guests, but in the soul of Sextus Tarquinius, captivated by her beauty, a vile scheme was already beginning to take shape. A few days later, he again visited the house of Collatinus. Lucretia, suspecting nothing, received him hospitably, and when night fell, instructed the servants to show him to the guest bedroom. Once he was certain everyone in the house was asleep, Sextus, with a drawn sword, crept into Lucretia's chambers and, waking her, began to persuade her to submit to him. But neither persuasion nor pleas nor declarations of love had the slightest effect. Then Sextus turned to threats. He said that if Lucretia resisted, He would kill her and one of the slaves, then place their bodies side by side. "I will then claim," he said, "that I caught you in the act of debauchery with a slave, and punished you both, avenging the insult to a relative. Thus your death will be disgraceful and shameful, and your body will be denied burial, and all the rites due by custom." There was nothing she could do. The woman yielded to the violence. In the morning, Lucretia sent messengers to her husband and father, asking them to come to her immediately, and to each bring a witness. These witnesses turned out to be the famous Publius Valerius Publicola and Lucius Junius Brutus. When they were all assembled, Lucretia told them what had happened. The men present tried to console her, assuring her that she bore no guilt. She called on the men to avenge the rapist, saying, "I do not recognize myself as guilty, but I do not free myself from punishment. Henceforth no unchaste woman who has broken her vow of chastity will be able to live," citing Lucretia as an example, end quote. And she plunged a dagger, hidden beneath her clothing, into her heart, and lowering her head to the wound, fell dead. The stunned men, regaining their composure, swore upon the sword stained with Lucretia's blood to pursue Tarquin and his criminal family, and never to allow them or anyone else to reign in Rome. The next day, the men carried Lucretia's body to the Forum and told the people what had happened. That was the last straw. The enraged people rose up and marched on Ardea, where the king was at the time commanding the siege. The army supported the rebels, and Tarquin was expelled. Sextus Tarquinius was killed. The leaders of the uprising, Lucius Junius Brutus and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, were elected the first consuls of the newly formed republic in 509 BC. However, Collatinus did not remain consul for long. After all, he belonged to the Tarquin family, which the people found unacceptable. He was replaced by Publicola. Thus ended the first period in the history of Rome, the monarchical period. For the next 500 years, the Roman Republic would endure. The image of Lucretia left a profound mark on European culture. The story of the virtuous wife was very popular in the Middle Ages, and Dante placed Lucretia in the first circle of hell, the so-called limbo. Here an explanation is needed. Limbo, from the Latin limbus, meaning border, edge, limit, is the place of souls who did not enter paradise, though they also did not deserve hell or eternal torment. Limbo is divided into two parts: the limbo of the patriarchs, where dwell the souls of virtuous people who died before the coming of Jesus Christ, and the limbo of unbaptized infants. Why are they placed in hell? It is understandable. Pagans who lived before Christ could not enter heaven. But in the first circle there are no torments. Among its inhabitants are the greatest poets, scholars, and philosophers of antiquity, and Lucretia was counted among them. Lucretia was written about by Chaucer and Machiavelli, and Shakespeare wrote a poem titled The Rape of Lucrece. As for paintings on the theme of Lucretia's suicide, they are countless. Among the artists we find such titans as Rembrandt van Rijn, Titian, Rubens, Dürer, Lucas Cranach the Elder, and others. Images of some of these paintings I have included in the illustrations. So, the story of Lucretia is complete. Goodbye.